What's up, everybody? Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, the bearded dwarven princess, and welcome back for another episode of Rings of Power as we review episode 2 in season 1 of this show, where we get to meet for the first time Disa, the beardless dwarven princess. And no, those little tufts of hair she has in her sideburn area, those do not count as a beard. If you think that that's a beard, you are a crazy person. I will accept no alternatives. It's not a beard. This is a beard. Durin has a beard. My God, does Durin have a majestic beard? And we're going to be diving into that in today's episode. If you didn't already watch my review of episode 1, check it out. It'll be up here. A link to it will be there. You can go watch it at your leisure. And as with the first episode, as we get to the end of this, I'm going to be leaving my review at the end. But there's actually two different reviews. One is my biased review as a Tolkien fan who looks at the lore and says they didn't do this properly. I don't like this. I do like this, etc. The other is my unbiased view, as if I was watching the show through the lens of my wife, who has never read the books. So, as an example, with yesterday, I gave my biased review as 6 out of 10, and I gave my unbiased review an 8 out of 10. We're going to be doing the same here today, so stay tuned to the end because we are going to be doing a big explanation of everything throughout. And I would be remiss if I didn't take the time here to say thanks to those of you who are supporting my channel. We have a lot of members of the Adventurers Guild. We also have those of you who are over at our Patreon page supporting over there. We have people who support via Super Thanks on videos like these where you click that button down there and donate whatever you feel comfortable with. And we have the people who are tuning into live streams and supporting when we stream every morning and every evening RPGs, MMORPGs, and beyond with super chats and stickers. Thanks to you, this channel keeps going. It's fully supported by the community and it exists only because of the community. For more information on how you too can become a supporter, we'll talk about that more at the end. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon as we dive in so that you can get more of this delivered to you every time I have a new video out. So right off the bat, we're getting into the fact that Galadriel starts off this episode in the middle of the ocean, treading water, likely wondering if she made the right decision, as she's swimming hundreds of miles from land, as if she could somehow swim all this distance. And then we're back at the crater, and it's more Nori and her friend Poppy. And the dialogue here, again, is super cheesy. You know, Poppy's like, "Have the wheels come off your cart," as Nori wants to go explore this fallen man in the crater, and she's touching it and saying, "Why isn't the fire hot?" And then her friend is like, don't, you're making the face. Don't make the face, not the face. Stop it, Nori." This is the cliche that I was talking about, one of the many cliches from the first episode, because they've made the character of Nori so over the top curious that it kind of takes away from her character. It actually kind of hurts. The cringe is so bad with it. But she, of course, goes down in the pit and touches the stranger's face, and the man shouts, reaches out, grabs her, shouts, rocks are flying around, his shouts echoing, the fires all die out and get sucked into his body. Then he passes out and the fires return. So obviously powerful mojo at play here. Nori's like, "We got to keep this a secret. We have to protect him from the wolves. We got to go hide his body. Don't tell the parents." All typical things that we've seen a million times in a million other fantasy shows, which is the cliche here. Um, we're flashing over now to Sadoc, the leader of the Harfoot tribes, and they're all freaking out about whatever it fell from the sky, wondering if this is the sign of the end times and whether they should break camp and move on. Um, it is what it is. I mean, the dialogue here with the Harfoots is probably my least favorite. Now, I understand, the Hobbits were kind of cheesy in aspects of even the Peter Jackson films, but I feel like this over the top here, especially with the kids, because we're back to the kids again, and the dialogue between Poppy and Nori is, especially Poppy continually nagging at her friend. "You're such a troublemaker, Nori, always looking for things like this, and this stranger's just going to get us all in trouble." And then the Nori's like coming back with this horrific dialogue like she's the chosen one. "It's like there was a reason this happened. Like I was supposed to find him. Like this is supposed to happen to me. Oh my God, it's destiny. You are the chosen one, Nori." Arondir and Bronwyn are off investigating the burnt out remains of this town where the poison apparently is coming from. There's no bodies, no wounded. They find a passage under town, which he's going to investigate. And he sends Bronwyn packing back to warn her people because the tunnel is apparently being dug in that direction. He almost gives her a little kissy poo here, but not quite, because that would be giving into the forbidden romance aspect of things. So instead, we have this tortured moment of where he wants to kiss her, but he doesn't, and she goes off while he jumps down into the tunnel. We do get our first view of Eregion here, and oh my god, is this epic! Very, very amazing looking place. The visuals are on full display here with the VFX. We get this scene with Elrond and Celebrimbor talking about Feanor's hammer, which is pretty dope. We also see that Celebrimbor's character here. Did I say Celeborn? I'm so sorry. I meant Celebrimbor. Um, where is Celeborn? That's why I keep mentioning him. He's in the foremost part of my mind because at this point in the storyline, him and Galadriel is supposed to have a daughter, and whatever. Anyway, we see our first scene with Celebrimbor and Elrond here. We're talking about Feanor's hammer, and Celebrimbor is driven by a need here that he wants to do something equally epic as his ancestor, who made jewels, the Silmarils. But he wants to stop making these little jewel craft here and do more than bring war to the shores of Middle Earth. He wants to create something of real power, something that could rival the Silmarils of his ancestor, the gems that almost turned the heart of Morgoth. But why is it so important that he has to create them by spring? He's like telling Elrond, "But we got to get this done, but it's got to be done by spring." Why does it have to be done by spring? There's no reasoning given for it, which makes it seem like a completely arbitrary and bullshit cliche time frame of it's got to be done quick. And then we get the reasoning now why Elrond has been sent to help, because Elrond is the politician, and he's going to be able to help figure out how to get a workforce together. And in this case, what springs to mind is the dwarves. And this sparks in him a desire to go visit Moria, where apparently he's great friends with Durin for some reason. And there is some majestic scenery here as they go walking through Eregion, having this discussion about things. But when they arrive, the dwarves seem to be less friendly than Elrond remembers and don't want to let them in until, of course, he invites the rite of Sigyn Tarag, which we find out is this dwarven ritual of strength, which we'll get into in a minute. I do need to pause here because I heard a lot of people saying that there's some sort of homosexual vibes going on between Celebrimbor and Elrond. I'm not seeing it at all. I don't know where people are getting off with this idea that Elrond is supposed to be gay. Um, I don't know that people have seen more episodes than I've seen because there's only 2 episodes out, but I'm not seeing any open homosexuality or gayness between Elrond and Celebrimbor. Not that I would have a problem with it if there were, other than the fact it's not in the books. Elrond gets married and has a wife and has kids. By the way, that's Galadriel's daughter is an important part of that lineage. Um, so I'm not getting that here. I just see a person who's obsessed with becoming a master smith, and Elrond who's obsessed with being this great politician and working together. Whether or not that's true to the books entirely, it doesn't really matter to me at this point. I'm just saying that's what I'm getting from the characters that are being portrayed on screen. I see a young half elf looking to find his own path, and an ambitious smith. When they get in, when he invokes this rite and they let Elrond in, I was blown away visually. Khazad-dûm, Moria is freaking epic. This is hands down a visual spectacle worthy of a feature film. The music is equally epic. Unfortunately, I didn't see a single bearded dwarven woman as they went through, and we met lots of dwarves about their daily lives, which is disappointing. It's disappointing, Amazon. Whatever. Anyway, back to the dwarven test for endurance. The friendship between these two characters is obvious, or at least there was a friendship at one point in time, and these actors are performing exceptionally well. I think both of the people who are the guy who's playing, and I don't know the actors' names. I apologize. It is what it is. I don't know them well enough yet. But the actor behind Elrond and the actor behind Durin are giving great performances here. I highly enjoyed this scene, the Dwarven Test of Endurance, and the banter leading up to it. These guys are in their element, professional actors doing good work here. But now we're flashed back. Nori's going back to check up on the stranger. She doesn't see him where she left him. Then she finds him scrawling symbols on a rock while whispers echo through his mind. And then she surprises him. So he turns around and shouts at her. And there's these dark winds that come forth, and darkness starts to coalesce around them while the whispers are swirling around, and wind and the trees are bending. And he obviously has powers. He starts freaking out, drawing with a stick. uttering the words mana, mana, ure, ure, and the stick breaks, and at the same time we get this sequence of her father trying to raise a pole in town, and he twists his ankle, um, and the village is now needing to know if he can make it, if they're going to migrate. And old man Sadek is wondering if her father's going to be able to move when the time comes to move the camp. Um, Strange stuff happening here. Obviously, some magic powers with the stranger in hand, and he doesn't appear to remember who he is or where he came from, but he's obsessed with symbols and the stars and drawing things on the ground. Um, Now we're back to our triathlete Galadriel, the Olympian herself, swimming across the oceans while a sea monster call echoes into the background, and then suddenly a ship of scraps emerge. And for some reason, she covers. Why is she covering her ears? We find out that the reason she's covering his ears is because elves aren't necessarily liked everywhere. And as gets pulled aboard this refugee ship, we find out that these are people who were on a ship that was attacked by a sea monster. And they find out that she's an elf, and they freak out. They want to throw her back into the drink. The monster appears. She's pushed from the boat, swims like hell. The remnants of the people are destroyed, but of course, there's a lone survivor who comes and fishes her out of the water. And it's our random, handsome hero who's been created from scratch, Halbrand. More on him later. Back to the dwarven area, Elrond loses, and it looks like he's going to be banished, but he asks if Durin will accompany him to the entrance. And we get this whole speech about how apparently 20 years have gone by, and Durin's all pissed off because Elrond missed his wedding, and he missed the birth of his two kids, and he must not really be a friend, and he knows only here because he wants something, and you cannot claim that which you discarded simply because you chose to be Mr. Elf Lord, and you're pursuing glory while ignoring our friendship. And ends up, of course, he gets invited back to Durin's house for dinner, and we meet Disa for the first time. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, she does have little patches of hair, like sideburns. That is not a beard, ladies and gentlemen. In no way, shape, or form is that a beard. No one in their right mind could construe that as a beard. And we also see that they've invented this new thing here. She's a stone singer, apparently. Something new they've invented for this show. At least I'm not familiar with it. If you're familiar with it, if stone singer is actually something from the books that I've not read, which they don't have the rights to in the first place, I'd love to know, because there's no stone singers in the Lord of the Rings and the Appendices or the Hobbit, and that's what they have the rights to. Um, the conversation throughout dinner, eventually the friendship comes back, which is cool. Now we're back on the boat. Halbrand has a neck bag with a symbol and something inside, which he tries to hide from Galadriel. There's a little bit of banter back and forth, and we basically get the gist of the storyline here is that it wasn't elves that chased him from his homeland, it was orcs, and now Galadriel is super interested in this guy and his kingdom. She makes demands of him. She starts demanding, "Take me to where you saw them. Who are you? Where did you come from?" And she finds out he's from the Southlands, and he won't tell her about the bag around his neck, and all this stuff happens. Um, then we're back to the other village. Bronwyn's on the run, tries to warn the people of her hometown, but they're not willing to listen to her because they're like, the elves are gone finally. Like, we're happy. Like, our overlords have disappeared. Why would we want to leave just because you and your little elf friend are saying there's danger? And we don't care that the elves are gone. We're happy because most of us didn't like the elves, unlike some of you. And then they all give her dirty looks. So the whole town knows that she's flirty with the elf lord. And they're not happy with it. And now we're back to Theo, which is the interesting part because I didn't catch the correlation until this episode. So now that we know there's something digging underneath, he's in the house and he hears there's something scratching under. And in episode one, he was talking about how he couldn't sleep at night because he was hearing the mice underneath the floorboards. And we know it's not mice now. And as he uh, like is hitting the floor to like make the mice stop, he puts a hole in the floor, and then there's an eyeball that looks at him, and he freaks out. Um, we're flashing back to Arondir now. He's in the tunnel. He finds a claw or a tooth in the wall. Hears voices in the tunnel. He starts fleeing whatever is coming down the tunnel. Barely escapes into an underwater river. Comes up in an unknown area, and he's backed up against this wall of like roots or something. And he's got a knife in his hand. And then hands come out of the, the vines behind him and pull him into darkness. So he's in deep doo doo. We don't know what's up with him. Bronwyn returns to her home. Finds a house torn up. There's a hole in the kitchen floor. Theo's in hiding. And of course, we get our first glimpse of one of the orcs. They have a big fight. They kill it. She cuts the head off, shows it to the town elders, convinces them that it's time to leave. Um, Now we're back to the storm in the ocean, which is the most pointless scene, and I know why they did it. Because this scene, I literally fast forwarded the scene. That's how boring and pointless this scene was for me. I fast forwarded the storm sequence. The only thing that happens here is Galadriel falls into the ocean and is about to drown, and Halbrand rescues her, which had to happen because they had to give her a bond to him because of what they're going to want to do with the storyline. I get it. I don't like it. I think it's lame. I think it's gross. I think it's stupid. Um, this is one of the most pointless scenes in this episode. Again, they did it specifically because they have to force this relationship, this bond with Halbrand. We'll see where that pans out in a long time. Back to the Harfeet. We're at the stranger again. He's looking up at the stars. Um, he turns around and there's fear and anger as he looks at the lantern they have, and he turns out it's just fireflies, and he the fireflies come out and they distract him, and he holds out his hand, and this is where I'm hoping they're not trying to make this character Gandalf, but the way that he cups his hand and whispers to each individual firefly and they fly out one by one makes me think of Gandalf on the Tower of Orthanc at Isengard when he's whispering to the moth and sends it off to go get the eagles, and the fireflies fly up into the sky and they form a pattern. And Nori's like, "Oh, that looks like a constellation. I don't know that I've ever seen these stars before, but I bet I know where I can find help to him. I bet I know where I can find help to help him find them." So Sardak, of course, she's gonna go get her Harfoot old man, crazy old man dude to help because he's a star chart guy, right? All the fireflies fall around them dead for some reason. Not sure what's up with that. But we at least know that this guy he needs to find a constellation in the sky, which is going to, of course, draw them to a new realm because they have to go to a place where that constellation exists. Um, and so he's obviously going to migrate with the tribe at this point. You know what's going to happen. So back at the dwarves, and we see Durin, the prince, reporting to his father Durin. Again, lore breaking. You can't have two Durins in the same place at the same time. Whatever. And there's this whole sequence of Durin reporting to his father and his father saying, "Isn't it just it's coincidence? You think it's just coincidence that Erlon shows up now? He knows." And Durin's like, "Oh, of course he doesn't know." And they open a box, and you know what's in the box. What's in the box, man? What's in the box? You know it's Mithril. Even though they don't show it in this episode, it is what it is. Back at the home where Bronwyn and Theo are, Theo's packing, and he pulls out the sword, and blood from a wound in his hand starts to drain up and absorbs into the blade. And as this does, the blade starts to go for being broken and starts to form out of fire and smoke. You can hear the black speech, and it starts to reform before he gets sidetracked and he has to stuff it in the bag. And he's off with his mom to escape into the wilds. But we know there's going to be more about that coming down the pipeline. And as the episode ends, we see Halbrand and Galadriel on a raft, and shadows show up as someone rescues them, and you know it's the Númenóreans. They're getting fished out of the drink by the greatest navigators of Middle Earth. So we know where we're heading in the third episode. We're going to be going to Numenor. Again, all in all, a lot of cliches here. So let's talk about my biased review versus my unbiased review. The biased part of me says I don't like what they're doing with a lot of these characters. I really don't like what they're doing with Galadriel, especially this whole quest for vengeance, because elves don't die in that sense. They go into Valinor and they continue to live. So why would she be on a quest for vengeance if her brother is still alive? I'm also still torqued about the fact that during this time period she would be with Celeborn, and they would have a child, and that child is someone who grows up to become the mother of some very important people later on down the pipeline. And yet there seem to be and I've heard rumors that the showrunners said, "Oh yeah, Celeborn's in the show at some point." Well, where and when? Because it's a very important thing. Um, I think there's way too many invented characters in this show. I don't like what they've done with the Harfoots being some sort of master star chart guys when Tolkien wrote specifically that the hobbits didn't do any sort of bookkeeping or note taking or anything until they got to the Shire. And only then did they start doing it. And it was after that point. and really only focus on genealogy. So this idea that these Harfoots are like masters of the sky and they keep all these intricate notes about star charts and everything, and I just don't. There's stuff that I don't buy. So for that reason alone, it knocks a couple points off my list. The cliches continue, which continue to bother me. So once again, I'm going to give my biased review a 6 out of 10. There were a lot of things I liked. There were, again, great visuals, great VFX. I loved Khazad-dûm. I loved the acting of the actors between the guys who played Elrond and the guys who played Durin. That whole sequence, um, everything in Khazad-dûm I loved, other than Disa. Disa, the actress herself didn't do a bad job with the role that she's been given. Her acting is good, but I don't like the character. I mean, I don't. I can't stand the fact that they're trying to force these little sideburns on us as if those are dwarven beards, and that's the way of saying, "Gee, dwarves have beards. Dwarven women have beards." Whatever. But I really liked everything about Khazad-dûm. The music was great. The visuals were great. The acting between those two guys is phenomenal. Um, Lot to like there. Halbrand's character, I have nothing to like about Halbrand's character. Nothing at all. I think his acting, he's acting all arrogant, and the writing is not that great in some areas. It's like, again, like I said in the first episode, they're trying too hard to be Tolkien-esque, and that is stumbling in places. It's okay in other places, but the dialogue between the two Hobbit kids is pretty atrocious. However, I'm an adult. If this is being written for children in mind, which it is, it's a family-friendly show, then look at it like Jar Jar Binks. Like Jar Jar Binks was a little over the top, but it was written for the kids to enjoy. So if I can look at it that way, you know, okay. But the dialogue's not that great in some areas, but in other areas it's okay. Um, so again, the biased review is a 6 out of 10. The unbiased review, I would probably give this episode about the same as last time, like an 8 out of 10 for the unbiased review. If I didn't know anything about Tolkien and I was able to watch this without having any information about Tolkien or anything, the only thing I'd ever done is maybe watched Peter Jackson's films. This was an entertaining episode, like the first one. However, there are still issues with cliches and writing and some things that would take away from it, which is why I say an 8 out of 10. Um, Overall, I it was not the dumpster fire that I was anticipating. It's been better so far than Wheel of Time, which was surprising, and I find myself entertained at the end of each episode. So at the end of episode 2, again, biased review 6 out of 10, unbiased review an 8 out of 10. There are good things here, there are bad things here. Depends on the point of view that you're coming from. Hopefully, you can disassociate yourself from your anger that you might have about anything that's related to Tolkien. I know a lot of people have been making arguments about how, as an example, what about all of Galadriel's brothers and all of these things that happen with her brothers? Well, those events happen in the Silmarillion, and they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, so they can't talk about it. And some people have said, well, if they shouldn't have made a Second Age show if they didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion. Yeah, you're not wrong. This is what we've got, however. So I'm trying to be objective and look at this and say, I'm a fan of any and all Tolkien because any and all Tolkien is going to bring more people to the books. It's the same point of view I have about Star Wars and Star Trek. I will always watch everything that comes out from Star Wars and Star Trek, and I always appreciate those things because it's more of what I love. I have no qualms about that whatsoever. I can critique, which is what I'm doing. So hopefully you find my review worthwhile. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Don't forget to check your comments below if you have things you'd like to add. If you want to become a supporter of the channel, it's really easy. Drop a super thanks on this video. $2, $5, buy me a cup of coffee. Join as a member of the Adventurers Guild down below. Join the Patreon page if you would like. And don't forget to super chat and do stickers during live streams, which are every morning and every evening as we play RPGs and MMORPGs and beyond. See you next week for the next Rings of Power review. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and happy viewing. Until next time.